2XKO is still a silly name, but I must admit, coming around to it slowly. Like, I think it's the cadence that I sort of had to find. It's 2XKO. Like, that's, okay, you can sort of make that sound good, I suppose, even if written out the way that it's spelled, it's still, I'm sorry, it still just doesn't... It still just doesn't look good. It still looks like they tried to spell echo and like messed it up on the keyboard. But, you know, whatever, who cares? There's Illaoi. Illaoi, my beloved Illaoi, is here. She has a champion spotlight, I suppose, or whatever the equivalent is for that. Gameplay reveal trailer for 2XKO. And it's just like, look at it. Well, yeah, well, check a look at the peek. And let's just... So this is her Bilgewater stage, which is like one of the... Is this in 4K? 1440, there we go. Less compression that way. So this is her Bilgewater stage, which is like an old tavern, which seems to have been constructed inside of Buru ruins. In Bilgewater. And I'm just looking at the design. Like, so obviously a bunch of potions and stuff in the background, all kinds of references. That looks kind of Demacian in its design. Then over here, that's Sea Hunter Aatrox, that's Tom Kench. Is that Gangplank? I think that's Gangplank. Can't see the stuff that's behind the text because of the text is in the way. But yeah, Easter eggs presumably will frickin' abound around here. Those aren't Legends of Runeterra cards, right? No. Surely not. Sea Hunter Aatrox again. That is that one of the Kane skins? Kind of looks that way. And also, like, this is a small thing, but clearly Yordles... Okay, so the canonicity or the specific condition of Yordles in Runeterra has been a bone of contention inside of Riot for some time, right? Like, there was a period some years ago where Riot, half of the stories that they put out seemed to indicate that Yordles were like cryptids, that they were like these incredibly rare magical fairy creatures that are almost never seen by humans and which live in this like magical realm apart from like the rest of Runeterra and like sneak out and disguise themselves with glamours and like, oh, like there's legends about the Yordles, but almost no one but children has ever seen one, like that kind of thing. And then at the very same time, over in Legends of Runeterra, it was like, no, Yordles are everywhere. Hey, here's a Yordle, there's a Yordle, there's a Yordle everywhere. Everyone knows Yordle, everyone has a Yordle friend. There's Yordles in every single society, at every single level of government and governance, and Yordles are like the backbones of several of the places that they live in. And also, they are fairy creatures from an alternate dimension where they can go to with magical portals. Yordles everywhere, Yordles for everyone. And that was, as far as I know, internally at Riot, that was the source of like a huge sort of disagreement among the writers and the lore builders and like the people who were sort of doing the world building for Runeterra, was whether or not the Yordles should be like regular members of Runeterra society or whether they should be like a separate class of thing apart from themselves. Obviously, the Legends of Runeterra people, or like that side of the debate, has won out quite definitively. Arcane certainly had Yordles just like around with regular people, and now 2XKO has joined them on that one. So it's pretty, I think it's at this point pretty safe to say who has won, but there's still stories and bits of lore that you can read on the League of Legends universe website that plays from that old, oh yeah, no, Yordles are cryptids and no one has ever seen one perception, which is like, it's again one of those things of like, we're gonna reboot our entire lore. How about like how about you demonstrate the ability to keep any part of it straight first, Riot? How about that? Anyway, that Yordle there is standing kind of awkwardly on the edge of the piano stool. I think they should move the piano stool forward a little bit more so that he's actually, so that his center of gravity seems to be resting properly where he's playing. That's my feedback for you, 2XKO people, is like, the game is not quite playable yet. This is an unforgivable oversight, and I will not be playing it until it is corrected.
Life is motion, not peace.
Right, so some classic sort of fighting game stylish graphics in the background here as Illaoi is introduced, but then also like a little bit of that Buru iconography in the graphics there over on the side. That's a nice little mix of sort of having both of them. I don't know that I'm one. That's a bit of clipping. I don't know that I'm 100% on board with, like, on the one hand, having the League of Legends, like, going very... Because, like, on the one hand, this game is very, very, very faithful to the League of Legends fantasy aesthetic, right? Like, lots of, like, leather and rope and, like, this is, like, old-timey, we're in the fantasy world with the medieval tech level and all that. And then on the other hand, we have these, like, Valorant-ass graphics, like that they use for some of their stuff that is, like, way too sleek and modern, and it's sort of like, it feels like it should be in a Tekken game rather than in like a League of Legends Runeterra fighting game. And I kind of wonder if not, like, there was a, and again, like, this is part of marketing, this is part of, like, how they're presenting and selling the product. Maybe, like, it's probably part of market research that they've identified that this is the aesthetic. There's, like, probably all kinds of considerations for that internally that they're doing. I don't know that I 100% like it, because I feel a dissonance, like a real dissonance between the graphical style that they've got going on. Same thing with the logo, by the way. That's another reason why the logo for me feels a little bit out of step. It's because, like, yeah, 2XKO sounds like that should be the cool fighting game, like that should be a fighting game that's populated entirely by, like, project characters, right? By project characters and sci-fi robots, or, like, characters fighting, like, in like, gloomy, sophistifuture cityscapes on the PS3. Like, that's what that kind of sounds like to me. Whereas it's like, this is like fucking Runeterra League of Legends. Illaoi is like the priestess of Nagakeboros, like the god of motion and change. And she's like from an ancient cult, right? Like, it's, I don't know, something about that feels incongruous to me. Like, it's sort of trying for the extreme stylism that's sort of present in fighting games with like the way that, like, Guilty Gear sometimes does, and, like, especially Tekken, I feel. That, I don't know, for me that feels disconnected, but that might also just be a matter of getting used to it, right? Because, like, I have one conception of what the League of Legends aesthetic is, what Runeterra is as an aesthetic, and it ain't this, but I guess over time we can incorporate it. But anyway, that clipping, though, I'm also looking at the animation on the tentacles, the way that they're put together. And this is where I'm going to have to take it back down to 1080p, because otherwise trying to frame through it is going to take way too long. YouTube's 1080p compression is so fucking ass sometimes. There's a lot of cheating to camera that's happening here as well. I'd be very curious to see what this landing intro looks like with Illaoi zoomed out, like where the tentacles are coming from and, like, how they come up around her feet. Right, again, this, like, hyper graphical, yeah, super sleek, futuristic, and then, like, this. Because, like, she lands, we see, like, this explosion, this, like, splash of water. That's sort of, I bet it's covering up a few things, and then we get tentacles, yeah, coming out of the ground.
Life is motion, not peace.
The thing is, like, I don't know enough about fighting games to parse what it is Illaoi is doing here. Like, whether, oh, that's a low kick into a high crossover, whatever. Like, what the terminology is for what she's doing or how it's working. I know I'm going to be playing her, like, on launch, because absolutely I am, but I have no idea what my playstyle is or if she suits it. Oh, nice. So she does spawn tentacles, good, and they interact with her moves. Oh. 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 Oh, hang on. Hold the phone. Hold on. Hang on there. Okay. So, she spawned the tentacle. She does an air grab, I think. Yeah. She slams him back down into the tentacle, and I do like that Ari is like still doing her goodbye animation over there. That's like really nicely framed. The tentacle grapples, and I wonder if that's like, is that a thing of like, does that only grapple if you launch someone into it, or is it like a stage hazard you can just kind of spawn? Now there's a transition in Illaoi's posing. You can see the hair kind of struggling to keep up there. I do like you can see that like her model is being distorted a little bit to sort of fit this, but like that's a really fucking strong key pose that there. Like with the eyes peering up over the whatever that shoulder muscle is called. And then like with him grappled, presumably disabled for a sec, she uses that as the opportunity to punish him. Again, don't know if that's technically a punish in fighting game terms, but... Oof, the compression is rough on this fucking video. Hang on, let me just... But it looked... Okay, I just wanted to see whether it looked clean or not, actually, properly. But no, yeah, it's just fucking compression, man. The glow on the tattoo is signaling what she's about to do. Presumably then will be the hit that activates the... Right, she's pulling his soul out through his body, and then we cut to... Presumably this is a model swap. Oh, no, it definitely is. Where we swap to, like, a cinematic, your ass is about to get handed to you model of Illaoi that does some slightly more complicated things for a cutscene. It also seems to replace the background. Like, this particular cutscene, when it's happening, the background also seems to be replaced. Or is it just... It's not just a haze filter that's put over the background, right? Well, no, it is. Like, yeah, it is. Because we're here, we're at the... Right, yeah, we're here, we're at... Okay, so they just, like, put a yellow haze filter in the background for the whole thing. Because I was wondering whether they swap the backdrop as well. Like, there's a unique backdrop for each stage, and they swap that in. Presumably, like, the point of giving this, like, yellow haze behind it is to make sure that the character is in focus, right? Like, that whatever the champion is doing is the main thing that you're looking at. I mean, whew. There is a very particular aesthetic they have, like, with the way they handle line weight, around, like, the outlines of the character. Because that's a shader sort of thing where you have the 3D model and you have some kind of post-processing thing that determines, like, where the outlines are, and, like, that varies up the thickness to sort of, like, hint at this idea of, like, two-dimensional art. It's a little bit sort of playing in the sandbox that Arc System Works built with, like, their 2D, 3D sort of mixed aesthetic thing that they've got going on with their anime fighters, but much more of, like, a... Like, it's still anime, like, there's still anime bits in here, as there is with a lot of fighting games, but this also, like, I see a lot of, like, Western comics, like, a lot of, like, with the deep, hard shadows, for example, that are sort of rendered around the outlines of Illaoi's muscles. That gives me a bunch of Western comics feel, with the way that that's handled. Like, that's some sort of Marvel superhero, dark inking. I can't imagine how much cheating to camera there is on these animations. Again, I would love a behind-the-scenes look at them, like, zoomed out, so you can see all the playing and distortion that's happening with the model. A nice 2D splash, it looks like. Yeah, that looks 2D animated. Like, that looks like, it looks like projections of 2D assets into a 3D space, more specifically. Oh, that does look good. I wish YouTube was a little bit faster at this. I should probably have downloaded this video. But we're too deep into it now, and I don't want to stop. So I could frame by frame my way through it. Ooh, nice. Okay. So again, like we're going at 60 frames per second here, so you can see how, like, when we go real slow, you can see how this is the surface of the water, which is down there, and is projected up here in order to match with, like, sort of roughly the middle of the screen, because that bit of animation is moving at such a lower frame rate than everything else that's happening right now. But because it's 60 frames per second, that works in motion. And then Nagakeboros. I mean... I like that a lot. Like, with the eyes opening in sequence. And, like, I see you. That's like, oh, that's properly terrifying. Oh, that's good. Again, and it's also about, like, the scale that's being managed here, because I would imagine even characters like, I don't know if Volibear is going to show up, like, but even, like, huge characters otherwise, like if Malphite shows up in this game, the way that they framed this, his model is still going to look real small next to, like, the giant eye of Nagakeboros, observing him. Which is, like, that's good framing, for the level 3 super, which presumably is what this is. And then... snap. A lovely bit of 3D animation here. 3D FX animation. 2D effects animation, rather. With, like, the flash of the eye. Again, YouTube, I wish you weren't being so slow. I don't know why you're acting so slow. Yeah, flash, and then to black. And then yush. And then crunch. Oh. Oh, yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm Caroline, game designer on 2XKO, here to give you an update on the latest addition to our roster, a champion who will be available to play for the very first time at this year's EVO Japan, Illaoi, the Kraken Priestess. As the prophet of Nagakeboros, the Great Kraken, Illaoi's faith demands...
As the prophet of what exactly? Nagakeboros. Well, the pronunciation of that name, by the way, everyone has their own one. I have my own one. I believe it's Nagakeboros, as it was pronounced in, like, the Ruined King game, at least. But every streamer you'll have seen playing that game will have gotten that wrong at least 14, 15 times. I'm no different.
that she take control of her own destiny by always moving forward. She wields a golden totem to test the will of her opponents and summon tentacles to fight by her side. In 2XKO, Illaoi is a heavy-hitting juggernaut who overwhelms enemies with pressure as unyielding as her faith. She's all about landing big hits and dealing big damage, then using tentacles to lock her opponent down and combo out of control. Her kit revolves around summoning and activating spear tentacles. First, she can use any of her S2 specials to spawn a tentacle. Then, she can use any of her S1 specials to trigger a tentacle follow-up attack, as long as her opponent is within that tentacle's splash zone. Even if her opponent isn't in range, Illaoi can use certain moves to teleport the nearest tentacle to them. She can also use Prayer of Motion or Prayer in Stagnation to activate tentacles from a distance. While tentacles are an important part of Illaoi's kit, she's not a puppet character. We didn't want it to feel like her tentacles were doing all the fighting for her. Instead, they're like rewards that Illaoi can earn by playing well. It means always staying in motion and taking smart risks to take control of the game.
Okay, but what was that little thing that she did there with the idol? That.
Taking smart risks to take control of
that seemed to activate some kind of buff.
Game. Illaoi can also lose tentacles if her opponent hits them, in which case, Illaoi can still do big damage, but she does lose access to some of her strongest neutral options. This means she'll have to take more risks or use an assist to engage her opponent, which isn't ideal. In development, there was a lot of debate around how tentacles should work. Should they be a true extension of Illaoi? Should they be completely independent of her? Both of these options felt very sink or swim, so we opted for a more balanced route, where Illaoi can activate tentacles without making direct contact with an opponent, but that opponent still has counterplay against them. Beyond her tentacles, we wanted Illaoi's kit to capture her incredible size, strength, and momentum, and her supers are no exception. With her S1 super, Crashing Waves, Illaoi picks up her opponent, swings them overhead, and slams them into the ground twice.
I'm gonna love doing that
If
so
she
much.
already has a tentacle up, holding S1 will reposition it so that she can stay on the offense after her super ends. Her S2 super, Wrath of Nagakeboros, summons giant tentacles that smack the ground around them. It also turns any tentacles that were already active into giant tentacles and leaves one behind after it ends. It can be an extremely impressive move, but if Illaoi or her duo is hit at any point during the super, her tentacles will disappear. So it's safest to use against an opponent who's knocked down. Finally, Illaoi's ultimate, Test of Spirit, sends her opponent's soul to the depths, where they'll come face to face with Nagakeboros. We love the idea of Illaoi smacking the spirit out of her opponent and beating it up as an homage to her kid in League. Test of Spirit is a mid-range move with super fast startup, which makes it great for ending combos, as a whiff punish, or for hitting an assist that's far away. It's also invincible on startup, making it a powerful reversal.
Yes.
Illaoi's pretty capable on her own, but her powerful assists make her an equally formidable tag partner.
Hey,
Her
it's got
back
the crap.
assist is a long-range
Or
tentacle strike,
crab
same
creature.
as her S1 special. If there's already a tentacle in range of her opponent, it'll perform its usual follow-up attack. Illaoi's forward assist is the same as her S2 special. On its own, the assist is great for controlling mid-range, but using Handshake Tag immediately afterwards lets Illaoi swap in and use the tentacle she just created to keep the pressure on. When she's not on screen, Illaoi's tentacles stick around to offer her teammates some extra offensive support. Even when she's KO'd, Illaoi can use Last Stand to activate Wrath of Nagakeboros and send the opponent to Tentacle City. When choosing a tag partner for Illaoi, remember she wants to back opponents into a corner, but getting them there might be risky. Illaoi's ideal tag partner is someone with strong neutral and high mobility who can make space for Illaoi to engage. Ari is a prime example. Her speed and long range allow her to catch opponents that Illaoi can't always pin down. Her assists also help Illaoi extend combos or convert a defensive tag into big. And long range allow her to catch opponents that Illaoi can't always pin down. Her assists also help Illaoi.
That long-range tentacle grab out of the ground, pulling him out of the air, though.
Extend
Oh, that
combos
looks fun.
Or convert a defensive tag into big damage. Again, Illaoi will be available to play at this year's EVO.
Ooh, a little snapping there.
Damage.
It's like, is that her idle animation or is that actually her taunt? Because if it's her taunt, it needs a little bit more than that, doesn't it? But, oh, look at the smile. I like the confidence of it and how relaxed she is.
Illaoi will be
And then there's a little bit of a snap as she shoulders the idol again. Just a little thing I spotted. Hang on. Yeah, there. You see that? Doop, 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 doop. Where she snaps into her idol pose, where I think the return thing is not quite perfectly synchronized with what the idol pose is.
play at
That's
this year's
fine.
EVO Japan, along with Echo, Ari, Darius, and Yasuo.
Ooh. Not a fan of the palette swap, though. Those are... I mean, I guess the Ari one is okay with the pink, sort of... Yeah, but... They just made her red. Like, they just put a red filter... I know it's more complicated than that, but, like, come on.
If you're attending, try her out with or against your friends and let us know what you think.
I mean, that's classic fighting game shit, right? Like, is to just sort of palette swap.
Otherwise, you can still sign up for at-home playtests happening later this year, and follow us on social for all future Illaoi updates. Thanks for watching, and see you. Again, Illaoi will be available to play at this year's EVO Japan, along with Echo.
She looked that's classic fighting game shit, right? Is like to just take the characters and palette swap them. It's also a little like, come on, like if you're gonna do that, at least do it as good as Riot as like. At least do it as nice as League of Legends does with Chromas, right? Like where it's like you give them a different color scheme. I know there's like things about readability, right? Like that you want the character to be very specifically, clearly readable as something else, but this feels a little bit like we just went into Photoshop and changed the color temperature, or the color hue, which like, come on, you can do better than that, Riot. Surely you can do a little bit better than that. In terms of recoloring the characters to have different costumes. Like, even Smash Brothers does it better than that.
If you're attending, try her out with or against your friends and let us know what you think.
I want to smack people around with those tentacles so bad, though. Ugh.
Life is motion, not peace.
There's something I really like about, like, the way that she wields. The way she wields the idol. Right, like that here, it's like, it's this big thing of, like, this wind-up of, like, reaching back, grabbing it, dropping her center of gravity, and then, like, big swing. Right, like, you can see, like, the way she steps forward, her upper body pulls, and then the idol follows, like, Kersh Slammo! That's such a good use of the gravity of the thing. I want to see the follow-through on that. Yeah, and then up and over her shoulder, and then after that, like, again, you see the dropping of the center of gravity, she extends her foot out to get a more stable position, and then the one-handed bitch slap. Just like... wacko! Like, swatting aside a fly. I like that a lot. And then she follows that up into, like, an overhead. Again, just with one hand, like, it looks almost like the weight of the idol is clearly there, like she's shifting around her center of gravity to manage it, but there's also just something so cool about, like, the way that she can swing this thing with both hands like a big fucking battle mace, but she can also one-hand swing that fucking thing. Like, she does not need two hands on this thing to swing it around, which is, like, that's a good way of representing her level of strength. That, like, when she uses both hands to swing that thing, that's a choice she's making. Ooh, lovely squash and stretch. Because she wants to deliver more power, but if she wanted to, she could smack you around with that thing one-handed. I wonder how much damage you get out of that S2, like that level 2 super. Because it kind of looks like the few times I've seen it on screen, it doesn't look like every single tentacle necessarily gets a hit off.
I'm Caroline.
It sort of looks like they disappear after a short time, and after like after like one tentacle sort of gets a hit in, which I wonder about that. I guess that's a balancing point for them. How much value she gets out of having that area control. Interesting. Again, I know very little about fighting games. I really am not a fighting game guy. But I will become one for her. It does look really fucking good. Like, it just visually, the animation, the personality that's on display in the characters, especially like the way Illaoi fucking handles. I'll take a look at the other ones once they come out, like with their own like gameplay reveal trailers. But like fuck yeah.
Illaoi is a heavy-hitting juggernaut.
Like the little thing of
KO.
Right, she has this thing where she slams the idol down, that spawns a tentacle. Boom, right? Slam. And then Like, she freezes there, and then you see, like, the little bounce back, where after she freezes a little bit, and the additional little push that then leads to the tentacle splashing out. Like, goddamn. The weight that they managed to do it with. That's the thing, is like some anime fighting games I've seen, there are times when, for me, the characters feel too weightless, right? In the sense of they swing all their shit around, they do all their motions and moves, but sometimes the animation, for me at least, doesn't feel like it's taking into account the weight of what the character is doing, or like the full management of like center of gravity and like managing the bulk and the gravity of the character themselves. This is something I really appreciated about Marvel vs. Capcom back in the day, that the Hulk always felt like he was real fucking big and chunky. That's something Zangief in most Street Fighter games also manages, like, to have that weight to him, that he feels like something very large and heavy that's moving, rather than like something that's just like able to float around like an insubstantial wisp of wind with like whatever level of speed you want him to have, and like with whatever, like, able to completely ignore the amount of mass, the amount of weight that he's actually dragging around. What I'm seeing with Illaoi's animation is that they're really, like, the animators are really carefully considering her weight, right? Like the gravity of her doing moves like this. Like, for example, like that forward jump right there, like the way that she's like jumping up, leading with her chest, and then like lurching forward to bring the idol itself down. Love the smears as well. I might want to turn the camera shake down a little bit when I play, though.
Destiny by always moving forward.
God, that looks
she
good in
wields a
motion.
golden totem to test the will
I'm
of
also
her
interested
opponents.
that, like, they can rotate the camera on this stage quite substantially. Is there going to be a photo mode in this? I would like there to be a photo mode. But, like, have they built out, like, a full 360-degree stage here? Because we're only able to get a side-on view, I believe.
And summon tentacles to fight by
It kind of looks like, well, maybe it's just more like a box with, like, 3 walls, but
her side. In 2XKO, Illaoi is a heavy-hitting juggernaut who overwhelms enemies with pressure as unyielding as her fate. She's all about landing big hits and dealing big
kind of like the
damage.
fish chef
Then,
back there
using
who drops
tentacles
his...
to lock her opponent down and combo out of control.
I'm going to spend some time when this game comes out, like, just, like, taking a character into a stage and standing around watching the background. That's another thing, like, in one of the things I really like about old Street Fighter games is, like, this sense of, because, like, the concept was, oh, these people are fighting in the street, right? Like, these people are fighting, like, in random locations that aren't, like, sanctified fighting arenas all over the world. So you'd have all these background NPCs just standing around doing stuff, right? Like, so, oh, hey, like, cheering on the fight, or, like, dealing with their own business in the background and stuff. I always loved that. About the old Street Fighter games, like I'm talking like Street Fighter 4 and before that, because that's the era when I played fighting games at all when I was younger. I always appreciated that. I see there's a lot of that DNA in here.
Her kit revolves around summoning and activating spear tentacles.
So, like, I also feel like I recognize that lady there. Isn't she from Legends of Runeterra? Shit, there's gonna be so many Legends of Runeterra cards present in the backdrop of these fucking things.
Around summoning and activating spear tentacles. First, she can use any of her S2 specials to spawn a tentacle. Then, she can use any of her
And
S1
that fucking YouTube bug again. I don't know what it is with YouTube and, like, doing these holds and freezes on videos that I'm watching. It's very, very annoying.
She can also use Prayer of Motion or Prayer in Stagnation to activate tentacles from a distance.
Right, so Prayer in Motion and Prayer in Stagnation would be...
the nearest tentacle to them. She can also use Prayer of Motion
Prayer of Motion is it slaps the guy,
or Prayer in
and Prayer of Stagnation
to
is it does a grab, which will then, like, set up for you to do some kind of a follow-up. Okay, well, that's interesting, because then every tentacle on the field will constantly be a thing of, like, you have to evaluate whether that thing is going to try and grab you, or whether it's going to try and slap you. And presumably you'll have to do a different defensive move to avoid or get out of either.
activate tentacles
Or, yeah, you can just attack the tentacles, obviously.
from a
But
distance. While tentacles are an important part of Illaoi's
It also sounds like you have to be a little bit smart to play her, which I worry about that because when I'm playing a game like this, I'm generally not smart. I want to smack you in the face as much as possible. That's more my vibe, my speed, but okay.
With her S1 super crashing waves, Illaoi picks up her opponent, swings them overhead, and slams them into the ground twice. If she already has a tentacle up, holding S1 will reposition it so that she can stay on the offense after her super ends. Her S2 super, Wrath of Nagakeboros, summons giant tentacles that smack the ground around them. It also turns any tentacles that were already active into giant tentacles and leaves one.
Yes, here they're slapping a lot. Like they're doing like multiple swipes and attacks on the enemy. But I wonder what triggers them to despawn.
It can be an extremely aggressive move, but if
Outside of
Illaoi or her duo is hit at any point during the super, her tentacles will disappear. So it's safest to use against an opponent who's knocked down. Finally, Illaoi's ultimate, Test of Spirit, sends her opponent's soul to the depths, where they'll come face to face with Nagakeboros. We love the idea of Illaoi smacking the spirit out of her opponent.
I do wish that it had a slightly longer wind-up. Well, not in terms of like gameplay, but the S3 Super, that there was a little bit more focus on the pulling the spirit out of the body.
Finally, Illaoi's ultimate, Test of Spirit, sends her opponent's soul to the depths.
Right, because it's like...
Ultimate, Test of Spirit, sends her opponent's...
Because it's like there that like the tentacle hits, the body's knocked backwards, and then like a ghost is pulled out. Like, yeah, but it's on... we're working at 60 frames per second, right? And this happens on screen for like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 frames-ish, that we see the spirit actually being pulled out of them. I kind of wish that was a little bit more visible, that there was like a little bit more of like, it held for just a second on like the spirit being pulled out, and then you send it to the Shadow Realm.
To the depths, where they'll come face to face with Nagakeboros. We love the idea of Illaoi smacking the spirit out of her opponent and beating it up as an homage to her kid in League. Test of Spirit is a mid-range move.
There's a lot of considerations, presumably, that the animators have here about, like, keeping up the tempo and timing. Which is, like, that's probably the reason why they don't hold on it, is because it's frustrating in the middle of a match when someone hits you with something, and then you have to stop and watch, like, a 30-second cutscene of them just kicking your ass to pieces because they executed one command correctly. I completely get that like, having, like, a really long... that having the cutscene be any longer than it has to be is, like, a break in the flow of the match, but I do wish there was a little... you just got a slightly more of a moment to see the thing about the tentacle is, like, pulling the soul out of their body. I feel like that could have, like another 30 frames at least, like a half a second on screen without like slowing the pace too much.
With super fast,
because it is very, very
which
snappy.
Makes it great for ending combos.
Right, like most of the time budget for the super is definitely focused on the slow descent, Nagakeboros opening its eyes, the iris or the pupil focusing in on the thing, and then snap, right? Like instant snap to sort of keep the pace going. So it's presumably a thing about time budgeting.
Making it a powerful reversal. Illaoi's pretty capable on her own, but her powerful assists make her an equally formidable tag partner.
Oh, precious friend.
Her back assist is a long-range tentacle strike, same as her S1 special. If there's already a tentacle in...
I'm genuinely very excited to play 2XKO, but I do worry that because I'm not a fighting game guy, because I'm not really a competitive guy, I don't really have that drive to, like, I need to win, I do worry a little bit that the thing I'm going to do is I'm going to load up the game, I'm going to play the characters and, like, just to see all of their animations and all of the moves that they can do and, like, go through, like, whatever story mode the game may have for each of them. And then after that, I don't know that I'll keep going, right? Like, I don't know that I'll keep being interested, that I'll keep being like, oh shit, I have my itch for, need to play some 2XKO today. Like, because I have that with Legends of Runeterra, that I have, like, I have a daily ritual where I play that for, like, an hour while I listen to a podcast, just going through Path of Champions and, like, trying to unlock and star up all the champions that are there, like, because that scratches my ADHD brain itch, with, like, a sort of nice progression of like you build up your thing and the roguelike thing and you capitalize on it, you get an overpowered build by the end and you go, yes, fucking. I don't know if I'll get that same satisfaction out of 2XKO. I really don't know. I'm curious about that. It might be a thing I need to organize. It might be a thing I'll need to have to organize some community things for that. Like, I might need to organize, like, getting to play against people that I know rather than strangers online. Or, well, that I know. Like, people who are, like, community members, who have names, who have, like, so that there is a sense of personality around it rather than fighting randos online. That might be the thing that'll keep it sort of rewarding and engaging for me. Because I live in Scandinavia, man. It's not. There aren't. Evo is not a place I can go to. Right? Like, there's not a lot of arcades. Where I'll be able to go and play this with people, which is the ideal thing for fighting games, right? Like, the ideal thing is to play it with someone else on the other side of the machine, right? And I don't know that that's going to be available to me ever. So I worry about that. But fucking hell, Illaoi looks good in motion. And I've talked about a 6-minute video for, well, talked. I've gawped at a 6-minute video for like 42 minutes now. So maybe that's enough. Let me in though, right? Have I signed up for the playtest? I'm not sure I have. I'm gonna go do that now. Bye.